I mean, I don't know why you're still looking. Get out of there. It's not good. Whatever is happening there is not good for you. Get out of there now. Why are you still looking?
Hi, I'm Chamar Griffith.
And I'm Andrew Tejada. We're going through superhero productions to let you know if they're still fun or the hype around it was dumb on
Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. Welcome to this week's installment of Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. My name is Chamar Griffith, codename Comic Shams.
And I'm Andrew Tejada, codename Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year Pinky and the Brain #1 premiered, published by DC Comics. And in this comic, I really sped read it, but they were Batman and Robin at one point, or maybe the whole thing. I'm sorry, I sped read it, but it happened.
I think I know exactly which comic that is. It'd also be funny because it'd also be funny if the roles were reversed, like if Pinky was Batman and Brain was Robin, but just because of the height difference. That's what I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Oh man, but speaking of like origin stories because of DC Comics and all that, we gotta talk about the OG superhero of it all, who gets a revitalized origin story from this new series, My Adventures with Superman. Now, if you've been following us since our yet another DC animated podcast moniker, you know that we love animated stories, especially when they have such a full cast with characters that are really compelling, great storylines. People are fighting for their honor, whatever it may be. And usually we'll provide you with an episodic breakdown of every single part of the series. We're not doing that today. Instead, we are now under the Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast moniker. We'll now give you some more of these current shows that are out now and give you a full season run through in this new segment of our show that we're calling Run It Back.
I like it.
Yes.
New titles.
So with this one, we are actually going to be covering the latest season of My Adventures with Superman season 2, that had 10 episodes that premiered between the ending of May of 2024 to about the end of or mid-July. This TV PG show recently wrapped up its second season that premiered back in 2023. It includes showrunners such as Jake Wyatt, Brendan Clogger, who has done so much work in the art department of the DCAU. It is kind of wild. And of course, Josie Campbell, a name we are quite familiar with, mainly because she basically co-wrote and wrote Legion of Superheroes and the War World movie.
Okay. If you've been following us, you know how some opinions that might have been about those, but it's a brand new day.
Brand new day.
You know?
This is honestly, when I saw this, I was just like, I feel like somebody had some creative freedom taken away from them in other productions. And the main reason for that is because this show, if you check on your websites or your webs, wherever you find it, you'll find that it currently has a 98% Rotten Tomatoes rating with an audience score of 81%. And I believe IMDb has it right now 7.7 out of 10.
Yeah, but if you think we're just going to sit here and automatically give something a pass because it's universally critically rated, you have another thing coming, maybe. But
exactly. I like maybe. You never know. All right, so now we talked about the showrunners. Let's talk about the cast as bringing this whole series to life. Since season 1, he has been the voice of the main character, Superman, completely putting aside his super killing side as Huey Campbell from The Boys. Today we have Jack Quaid, who is voicing Clark Kent. Next up, what a guy, honestly. It's just like the range already when you look at this. Next up, we got Alice Lee, who's taken her talents from off-Broadway productions now to the animated screen, as she's going to be the voice of Lois Lane. Ishmael Saeed, he's done some work on Nickelodeon productions, including, I believe, a show called That Girl Lele, I think it was called. But more importantly, well, not more importantly, sorry. But also you've seen him recently on the sleeper show Jury Duty. That I feel like everybody was just like, it was one of the most random, out of nowhere greatest shows that won Emmys, I think, in this first season, or is nominated for one. Today he is going to be our Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen is black, y'all. This is the new day and age. Next up, we got Deborah Wilson, who made the jump from acting on television as part of the main cast on Mad TV for basically its entire run to being a voiceover powerhouse, as she's now the new official voice of Daisy Duck in all Disney productions. And she was also the motion capture artist for Amanda Waller in the Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League video game. Today, she's continuing that quest on superhero destruction as Amanda the Wall Waller.
This is sorry, spoiler for another episode, but definitely a better Amanda Waller than the one we got for Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, 100%. 1,000%. Next up, continuing on, we got the English dub voice of Saitama the One Punch Man, Max Middleman, who is voicing basically the rest of our villains in this series. He is the voice of Alexander Luthor. He doesn't really adopt the name of Lex quite yet. He also voices Hank Henshaw and Atomic Skull.
Okay. Yeah, that's job security, man.
But don't worry if you're feeling like the villains are already pretty stacked. We do have some heroes who are providing backup for them. As we got Byron Mark Newsom, who's voicing John Henry Irons and Silas Stone. Byron, you might know his name if you watch Craig of the Creek, the animated series. He has taken on the role of Dwayne Williams, who the father of the family unit from Terry Crews. And I gotta say, it's a pretty great transition. So. And finally, the main focus of our season today will include breakout star from Trinkets and the Fear Street Netflix movie saga, Karina Madeira, who is voicing Kara Zor-El. Don't think she actually goes by her more well-known name quite yet in this particular season.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And finally, the person operating behind the shadows. Honestly, he's been in DC just really being the big bad, the overall head honcho of a lot of things. Like he's the Joker in The Dark Knight Returns, both parts of the film. He's Caden James in the Arrowverse, and today he is Brainiac, as we have Michael Emerson, who's making his DC production return.
Welcome back.
Mm-hmm. All right, so with that, let's go up and away and run it back on this Cape or Cap review of the second season of My Adventures with Superman.
Yes. So again, we're saying we're doing it a little bit different this time. We're not gonna get down into the nitty-gritty details of everything. We are going to give ourselves a little bit of a time limit to get into this. So the first section we're going to talk about is story, and we're going to give ourselves 15 minutes, just 15, to talk about story. The time is on the clock. Now, if you haven't caught up to season 2 yet, you're thinking about seeing it, you checked out season 1, you're not sure, we're going to tell you in here where you can skip to the end for our Cape or Cap final verdict. And that's where we're going to give a spoiler-free Cape or Cap final verdict. But from this point on, we're going to do some spoilers because we're not going to talk around the story. All right. So, all right, 3, 2, 1. You had your time to soar away. Let's get into the story. In a very general sense, what this story is that at the beginning of the season, Superman discovers that he has a way to contact a survivor, his cousin, out there. And if he finds a specific beacon, he can get to her and bring her to Earth. And eventually, the decision is made for him to do just that. And these first four episodes really revolve around his decision to even get Kara there. And in a general sense, I will say, in my opinion, these episodes are great standalones. They're
Mm-hmm.
really fun, really funny stories. But a main thing that I do think holds back the at least the first four is communication. There are a lot of problems that could be solved if people just talk to each other.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's so many times that it's just like you're watching it and I'm just like, this has to be the moment. Like just yell it out. Just like I feel like a lot of the conversations and the miscommunication that happens, I never experienced in my life. I would just, if I have something on my mind, I'm going to say it or at least like allude to it or enough that I feel like the people who I'm talking to or the people who are talking to me, well, there'll be a moment where the person receiving the information will be like, wait, let's dive into that. And the main thing is definitely we go through these first four episodes where it's like, again, Clark has this way of communicating with this long lost relative. At the same time, um Lois, I almost said Lana. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm stuck on Smallville.
Mixing up your
It's too many double L's, people. So at the same time, we have Lois who is dealing with the fact that she wants to make sure that she's like up there in the world, especially with her news writing. But more importantly, she's dealing with the fact that she just found out that her dad was a big part of like the whole effort to try and kill Superman. So now that they've kind of healed that from season one, now it's the aftermath. And now that she's like trying to figure out, does she take this particular opportunity that comes up for her, which is to leave Metropolis? Because another thing about this show, even though it all takes place in Metropolis, they are pulling every single woman from Gotham that Bruce Wayne has ever had a connection to.
Yeah, I mean, we're get in character, we're gonna talk about, some of these, but I do like that it's this bridging of worlds because as you know
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast, a running thing with us is Batman itis in DC productions. The tendency for Batman to come in and just steal the spotlight from everybody around them
Mm-hmm.
is a it's a problem. It's a constant problem into like fully immersing yourself. So here I love the little hints that Gotham exists, that other cities
Mm-hmm.
exist without bringing in additional characters. I think that's really really great to let Superman live and also makes the time. I imagine they'll get to a point where we'll see another hero and it'll mean a lot more than just assuming. Um so yeah, so at this it's also a good part because it's when Superman is brought into this beauty competition that we end one big thing of the story and begin another. So in these first few episodes, Superman's debating whether or not to turn on the beacon but can't talk to Lois about it because they're having communication issues. And it's here where Lois doesn't properly communicate with Superman while he's in this, dating beauty contest. So she
Mm-hmm.
breaks up with him, and at the same time she breaks up with him, Kara, who has been spending her day with Jimmy, at her first day on Earth with Jimmy, sees Clark in this competition, thinks that he is now a joke, that and immediately is on site, has a fight with her cousin because she thinks he's lost the plot and
Mm-hmm.
he's completely off. And despite Clark having experience on Earth, Kara, in a specialized suit made from Krypton, is able to overpower Superman. And that's where she is able to bring Superman to the season's big boss.
Yes. I will say too that I love
Yes.
this suit that Kara has because when season one ends, you see this character and for anyone that's like has absorbed as much Superman mythos as we have, they know as soon as you hear about like, oh, there's another out there, and you see this kind of scape of like this hellscape of this person who's ready to conquer, and especially if it's a Kryptonian, you immediately think it's Zod. So when this happened, I was just like seeing her in the suit and realizing that the person that we thought this whole time that was going to come to Earth and that was going to destroy everything with Zod, it's actually Supergirl or Kara. And it's such a great twist
Mm.
because I feel like we've been seeing it recently, especially this like Kara, because of everything that happened in Tomorrowverse, Kara having this like larger connection to either a villain or bad things happening.
Hmm.
So seeing it play out in this particular way, where it's almost it's such a larger scope, but still within the confines of what I wanted to see from a Superman story, is great. And then to have it be that she's like the general almost of the actual big bad, which is Brainiac. I think
Hmm.
that really came out of left field because I never would have expected that we would have seen something like this, especially so soon. Because now, this entire time, as Clark has been dealing with like, should he reach out to this cousin? Because the entire part of him is just like, I found a family, I found friends, but I haven't found anyone like me. So have I really found my family? And now it's like, all right, I'm gonna do it. And then it's just like literally all hell breaks loose because you got the worst of the worst.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is, yeah, this is such a great turn. I mean, talk about it more in the character section. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is just a series of upsetting expectations. We're so used to Supergirl comes to Earth, she's lost, she's naive, and she's this innocent person just obsessed with Krypton and the memory, and too obsessed to move on. And here it's taking that obsession and twisting it is really, really a really strong choice. And I think it's no coincidence that this is where the story really hits. Where Brainiac basically says, "Hey, I'm on your side. I want Krypton and the Kryptonian Empire to thrive."
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, it's Brainiac, so he's not going to do it in the best way. But instead of bottling Earths like he usually does, just collects them, he wants to rule them. So he's obviously unable to persuade Clark to turn on Earth with just a conversation. Talk no jutsu does not work. So Brainiac um does decide to go into Clark's mind. And reveal in doing so also reveals that he's also controlling Kara's mind. He can remote
Mm-hmm.
control her at any time. So now he tries to do this to Clark in the most brilliant story turn. I am still clapping over this. Um, there's a whole episode where Clark and Brainiac fight in Clark's mind over control, where Brainiac uses a combination of Clark's real memories and memories that Brainiac manipulated to get Clark's will to weaken.
Mm-hmm.
And Clark, at the very last second, seems to break out of the memories, gain control, and it's then revealed that not only is he stuck in the simulation, but that the simulation is called the Black Mercy device. This insanity. I have seen the Black Mercy. You've probably seen the Black Mercy 1,000 times. Usually it's you just get trapped in your wildest dream. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a plant that traps you in the wildest dream. So to twist it, where Brainiac uses it not only to mind control him, Clark, but also trap him in his wildest dream at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever thought of this, I need to shake your hand and just kiss your hand for a second, kiss the ring, because this is exactly what I want. I want elements to be changed like this, things I've seen before in a new light. Black Mercy, I'm spoiling a little bit for later, but this is one of my favorite scenes of the season, one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
twists. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it is so well done. Especially because, as you mentioned, like, we have this concept of what Black Mercy usually is based off of how it's been used in the past by villains in comic books and even in animated series, the original Superman animated series. So to have it be now that like this, I agree. I love that moment when he's just like, you think it's all safe, like the day is safe. Superman came through, he did everything he needed to do, and then it's like, bam, sweep you off your feet. It's not all good. So it's like it is really refreshing to see that you can still have this level of a twist, especially given the fact that it's throughout multiple episodes. So I think that like something that I love about this particular season is that in not like coming after any of the older Superman productions that have happened, that I still always hold like a special place in my heart, is that this particular season it's built out so that it's not just villain of the week stuff. Ramifications from previous episodes, especially this Black Mercy part, lead up into like the season finale. And the fact that it really pushes you to wonder, are they going to be able to save the day by the end of this season? Even I forgot what was the episode count because I was like, there's too much you could wrap up in a couple episodes. It has to be more than this. And they do a great job in not only introducing this as the biggest problem, but also bringing it to a head when it all culminates on Earth, which also got to speak back now, go flip to the other part of the story that's happening. The buildup of the villains. So
Mm-hmm.
in quickly just mention it in season one, they spend a lot of time doing the big bad of the week, the villain of the week special, where it's just like I can see now that they were trying to introduce all of these characters to give Superman his adversaries. This time around in this second season, they are planning, and I love it. There's from random episodes that will just random scenes that will just come up where it's like you see that Lex, Amanda Waller, and Slade, Deathstroke, because yes, he's in this, are all working together to try to take down Superman, growing their teams, growing their systems in order to finally take down Superman once and for all. It includes the inclusion of like Hank Henshaw, all these characters, and you see how they manipulate or at least like convince these people to join along in their side. From how Lex Luthor and Jimmy end up having the debate about like, is Superman good for society, to then having a moment where Superman unfortunately does something wrong that leads to the U.S. government, the army, or the Air Force to being like, all right, we can't mess with Superman anymore. He clearly is a threat. To even how it gets played out and how they use Metallo in a new reinvigorized way to fight against Superman. So I think I love the fact that the story for the villains started to drastically change on the
Yeah.
back end without having to worry about like they're going to get taken out in like one episode or so.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of villains, as we come to the end of our time here, we're
Mhm.
keeping it strict. But speaking of villains, we'll get into characters, but they bring back other villains in interesting roles. Of course, Mala and the Brain, former villains, are the ones who ultimately help Lois reach reach Brainiac's ship, and eventually Lois, by using the Black Mercy as well, is able to invade the Black Mercy, pull Clark out for the final battle against Brainiac. Where in this wild battle, every human on Earth, even Amanda Waller, comes together to rise against Brainiac. And by the end of this battle, Kara and Clark almost give their lives for the planet Earth.
Mhm.
And this is where we get a resolution where all the season people have been wondering things about Superman. Is he good? Especially with his cousin showing up. Is this good? And the Earth accepts Superman by the end of the season. So that's story. That's the story section. A lot gets covered in one. It's hard to believe it's just one season. Um, but moving right along, starting the clock again, 15 minutes. Let's talk about characters. I do need this 15 minutes to talk about Silver St. Cloud because her character design.
I think we're gonna blow the budget on that one.
No, seriously, great character design. But no,
Mhm.
really, really seriously. Um, this season juggles a lot of characters. Um, and I but I want to start with saying something about Clark this season. Um, Clark. his journey in this season really is he is Superman. He's out here, but now he's like, can the Earth accept me? Can Lois accept me? Can people accept me? So I think his conflict, always said, I love a conflict that can't be solved with punches from Superman.
Mhm.
And this is something that I think they really do well to explore. And I think it really goes nicely with Kara, which I'm saving Kara for last, but yeah, Clark is the first one that stood out to me. Any characters, or go on Clark or any other characters that really stood out on the hero side for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I I'm like trying to figure out who's going to be my top person, but right now going for number one spots are Lois and Jimmy. Because Jimmy in particular, he left last season rich. Like my man was balling. Like he did the thing that not that many people would have seen coming at all. Like I remember when it happened, I was like, oh, this is going to change the game. But I also knew that because of what will probably happen, the way that most shows like this are end up written, he's going to probably be like super broke by the end of it. I'm glad to see that he didn't go broke. Actually, um, but the reason why I really was impressed with the way that Jimmy was written out was the fact that he spends this season trying to figure out what to do with his money, what to do with his impact. He's now the leader of the whole Flamebird side of the Daily Planet, and that came with a lot of like just a lot of power and influence. And you see what it's like for him to tackle that. There, as I mentioned, there's a scene in which um Luthor and they kind of get into a debate about is Superman good? And he gets tricked into joining on this panel because he thought that maybe it was just like for his work of with Flamebird and bringing people together throughout Metropolis. But instead, it's because he has this connection to Superman and they're trying to use it against him. So in this moment, he doesn't really know how to deal with the negative impact that his influence has. He invites Clark, they go out, have some fun. So when Luthor is just like drilling into Clark, or rather Superman, this is when you see Jimmy shies away because he doesn't know what to do. And then we spend like a good majority of his arc being like he wants to not just do better for Superman, but more importantly, do better for the friend that he feels like he failed. So I
Yeah.
feel like it really takes him out of his comfort zone, especially once he meets Kara, since the two of them end up having this like meet cute when Kara finally arrives. So I think seeing that happen was just like seeing Jimmy kind of like evolve as a person, recognize that like he does have a new sense of power. However, he could still be just as good of a guy as he's always been trying to be.
Mm.
Yeah, the thing about Lois that I love was that she tackles a lot of the stress that her father put her through. We got a sense that like her father kind of always kept things close to heart, had always trained her for an apocalypse moment, but never really explained what that moment could be. So when he's at a point where they do have this reconnection because she's able to save him from a mess that he put himself in, that she's now like realizing that a lot of the emotional triggers that she has in her life of being unable to really connect with people and a lot of things that might be hindering her relationship with Clark are because of these issues that she's having with her father. And you get this episode where you do get like a strong flashback sequence of, what was her life like growing up and what was it like, especially being the child of an army general. So I think that her finally coming to a place where she can finally call him out for the way that he raised her after not really building an emotional connection with her, I think that was also really well done. So I'm very happy to see that the heroes who didn't really get a chance to have much of a bump up in the last season, because obviously I'm assuming it's because you wanted to focus on building out the adversaries. now have a moment where they're going through these like deep moments where they feel like they harmed or did something to Clark or Superman that put him on another path. And now they're trying to realizing that like there was something more eternally going on with me that I needed to address that and then fix that later on with Superman.
Yeah. And beautiful. What I love about this arc in particular is they, her and her father are fighting all season over the
Mm-hmm.
abandonment issues. Sam Lane is also very fun. Very fun for Sam Lane here. He perfect balance of stern and silly. But as we get to the near the end of the season, Lois is constantly using the skills her father taught her
Oh
to
yes.
to and it's never said aloud. She never once turns to the camera and says, "Oh, I can only do this because my father taught me." So it's really, I think it's really nice that the writers trusted us to make that leap when we get to the end, that even though she may not like how she was raised by Sam, she also accepts that some of the things that he taught her are still benefiting her and helping
Mhm.
her save her loved ones like he always intended her to. So it's really, and it nicely mirrors a good father with that, a good father just executing things wrong and a bad father executing things wrong, which leads me directly to Kara. Kara to me is the absolute show stealer of
Mhm.
this season. We touched on her journey of, she was found by Brainiac, and Brainiac told her, your mission is to help me restore Krypton. This is so, though they never miss an opportunity to really make you feel the weight of what she's done. There's a point where Kara realizes she's been glitching, her memory's been glitching out, removed by Brainiac, because she thinks she's going to planets and making peace treaties. But once the veil is lifted, she's able to see that she was used as a tool to destroy these planets, to wreck these societies. Multiple societies are wrecked, and I imagine this is something that will come up later. And I'm excited for it too in future stories. But she is in this she gets in this deep hole and this darkness where she doesn't even care about her own life. What she cares is about saving her cousin from being
Mhm.
treated the same way that Brainiac treated her all these years. That's what it boils down to. And after the dust settles, after she's almost given her life, gotten a scar on her face permanently to remind her of what happened, her battle against Brainiac, Clark turns to the earth and says, "Do you hear that? They're cheering." And she's like, "Cheering for you?" He says, "Cheering for us."
Mm.
That is how you write a character. Damn, that was
Mhm.
good. Like, Kara's beautiful, beautifully played, beautifully voice acted, and her dynamics with all the characters are so fun. So I hats off. Kara had stole my heart, and I think stole the show for
Yeah.
me this season.
I mean, it makes sense now why that last episode was called "My Adventures with Supergirl" instead of Superman. Yeah, I agree. Oh man, she really, and I love that when everybody first saw her. I think because this show ended up being so much of a sleeper show for a lot of people, when they saw Kara's design, everybody thought Android 18, and
And
it's
to be
wild.
fair, it is. It's the
It is.
same. It's the same outfit.
And
Or black and
haircut,
white.
like
Yes.
so yeah, it was like, we were at a point where this was a been we were getting a lot of Supergirl news, I feel like, at this point. So it is fair if people would start to feel a little bit of a fatigue from these like super beings, because not only are we having like 30,000 iterations of an evil Superman, we were seeing a similar take now happening to Supergirl. So to have her come in and really, like you said, just really steal the show in this way, and such a compelling story. I'm really excited because it's like also the dynamic that she has. It shows how much of a just a lighthearted and good person she always will be. Because when she first meets Jimmy, it's an immediate connection, and I loved it because I grew up
Hmm.
so growing up with watching that. It was always like Jimmy and Kara were the ones that like liked each other. It was nice to see that. But the thing that really put it over the top for me was when Kara and Superman finally kind of like meet again after she takes him onto the ship, and he finds like these photos that she has of Jimmy from their little kind of like unofficial date, and she and he's like poking fun at her for liking him and knowing that he knows that well, rather, people know that they like each other, and he's just like poking fun at her for it because it's just like, hey, this is my friend, like I could talk to him for you. So it's like, I love that dynamic that was so immediately felt like it's a family dynamic. And I feel like it was one of the first times that you saw in the show also Clark have a genuine smile that wasn't just connected to like well, more so it was connected to like the thing that he wanted. He found his real family there. So now he was feeling like his life is truly complete. And I love the fact that they had that moment where they were like, we don't know where we're going. We don't know where we're going to be a part of. But let's just have a little fun in this scary, scary moment. And they did such a great job with it. I mean, I'm so glad that we got a chance to see this version of Kara, especially the sacrifice that she does make at the end to it's like the thing that I loved also was that she was willing to sacrifice herself, and then Clark was like, nah, we can do this together.
Mm-hmm.
And love that. Really love that.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, because I'm gonna put a 5 minute extension on the clock because we can't not talk about Brainiac. We can't not
Oh.
talk about Brainiac. Brainiac typically, and again, what I said earlier about remixing elements of that we already know is really fun. So Brainiac typically is pretty straightforward. He's obsessed with acquiring knowledge for knowledge's sake. In order to do that, he bottles worlds. That's his typical MO. Just take the world wholesale, get the knowledge, collect all the knowledge in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Here, he's reverse engineered into the plot in the most brilliant way. Brainiac in this series, in this show, this continuity was designed specifically to protect Krypton, to make sure Krypton survives in any form. And when Krypton was teetering on the edge of destruction, and when Krypton was about to be destroyed, Brainiac escaped, or so we thought, because we later discover that Jor-El and a bunch of scientists were trying to move away from Krypton's warrior initiative. They wanted to stop conquering. They wanted to stop expanding. And Brainiac calculated that if they did that, the Kryptonian way of life would eventually be taken over or completely die out. So what he
Mm-hmm.
decided to do was trigger the destruction of Krypton, make himself ensure that he was one of the only survivors, and then go and spread Kryptonian ways across the universe. And him finding Kara was a lucky boon for him. But his refrain this whole season is, "I'm doing what I was programmed to. I'm supposed to
Mm-hmm.
keep Krypton alive. I'm sorry you disagree with how I'm doing it, but this is how I think it works." And it's such a great motivation because, of course, we don't ride with it. We don't support this, but we understand.
Yeah.
We understand why he's doing this every step of the way.
Yeah. I it is really surprising to see it play out in this particular way, because I think there's only been like really this is the clearest one to mind. And I feel like many have tried to attempt to incorporate this in some way where it's like, it's just the programming of AI. It's like a version of Skynet that just went even further than we thought. Um, so I really appreciated seeing how it was reverse engineered like that, because even in the first season, they do introduce some elements of Brainiac, but it's not quite what we see it here. The character who is like, I'm doing this to continue the Kryptonian way of life. And even seeing how that played into the final battle, when it's just like the entire time, he's like, we're terraforming this place. We're going to make sure that Krypton is the essence of Krypton is there. Even and ultimately Superman and Kara are legit the characters here who shows that what he's thinking is right. If they get involved in another planet's way of life, they're going to sway from the Kryptonian mindset. And even when you see the whole Black Mercy part, you see how different this like version of Jor-El is compared to Kal-El. And it's not just because they're basically the same being, but the difference was that cultural impact. And so he's seeing this play out. He didn't see it with Kara, but maybe he did, and that's why he's just like, I have to take control of her mind. So great writing on the villain, especially because we really only had about maybe five, 4 to 5 episodes really of seeing how he played out. And the entire time that we're meeting him and being introduced to him, we're thinking, oh, he's not that bad. He seems to really, again, this whole preservation of Kryptonian scape is what we want. So seeing how that his mindset gets warped is really interesting. And I love the fact that it was really because of him that Krypton was destroyed.
Mm-hmm. That so good. We're closing the character section, but honorable mentions. Any honorable mentions you want to make right now? You got a little bit of time. Who you want to highlight?
Steve. Oh my gosh. Steve, the entire Flamebird crew, it's really surprising to see, like, to introduce random characters throughout the stories that are just like, hey, we're gonna show you how cool our lives can be through these small moments. And Steve having a really great set of lines where he's just like, he helped save the day at one point, and you hear him having that conversation about what it was like for him to save the day and what to do next. And then even the kids who were involved, like Flip, uh, I love Flip. Also, other honorable mention, Silas Stone being a good person here in this one, sort of, or better than what we see in the past. But more importantly, the appearance of John Henry Irons, I out of nowhere loved it to be here. What about you?
Yes. I got to give it to the Calvary. Full stop. The entire Calvary. We're talking Livewire, Heatwave, Intergang. I'm counting Mala and the Brain as part of the Calvary because they came
Mm-hmm.
in. All these characters had encounters with Superman. Superman beat them, but they saw the error of their ways, or they saw that Superman had good intentions and allied with him to save Earth in the end. So I love them all coming back. Again, the top of that mountain is Livewire and Heatwave. They had an
Mm-hmm.
episode. There was an episode dedicated to Livewire helping Jimmy and Lois break into an Argus facility in order to get a spaceship to get to Superman. And Livewire just pops. She is a great contrast to the rest of the cast. And her relationship with Heatwave. And what I love about their relationship in particular is there's a point in media where something isn't said, isn't pointed at and drawn attention to, it means that we're moving past it being a big deal and it being just accepted widely by everyone. So here to have an open relationship between Rory and Livewire, who are both female presenting characters, to have this queer relationship and not comment it. No one at any point goes, ha, or whoa. It's just there. I love that. I really love that that's
Mm-hmm.
being done more and more. And I really hope that we see that in more animation. Because I really think as far as some days we think we've come, we can still go further.
Yeah.
So let's keep up that representation. That's why they definitely stand on the top. All right, so we talked about characters, plot. Let's talk about how this show looks. So animation and fight scenes, 10 minutes on the clock. There's no order. Animation or fight scenes. What's some animation or fight scenes that you pop into mind when you think about this season?
Man, you kind of just stole it during the character part. Oh my God, that Livewire and Heatwave sequence when Livewire is trying to help out and Heatwave joins in. And then there's also they do a second team up later on in the season finale too. It is such an amazing sequence of animation because something that I've been realizing, I think I always like for some people it's like it's a meh, but I kind of love it. This like blend of a 3D kind of like I guess it's more like Flash animation where anything that's robotic looks shiny, looks like it's been put together. My most immediate thought that I think of, it's like the reboot series
Mm.
from back in the day, and I know they kind of did it too. I kind of commented it back when we were when we were doing yet another DC anime podcast, when the Parademons kind of have a similar look when they were being blown away. The suits, making them look like they're like little toys actually just moving along this 2D screen is awesome. And they did this for Livewire and Heatwave. And I loved it because not only are you seeing this animation being like done because they're flying through the sky, you're having this unspoken moment between them. At the same time, it's the most badass firefight you ever see in your
Mm.
life. And I love it. I think what this show does really well is that there are sequences where they just like they know who's watching. And given that this show drops usually around on Adult Swim late at night, definitely leaning in towards that like anime audience. There are many sequences in which they introduce that like kind of like anime feel, and they also introduce the kind of Western animation feel. It is so good. I love it. I think that's some of my favorite parts of the animation. It's clean, it's cut through, and everything feels like it's a blend on so many things that I like to incorporate. Especially seeing John Henry Irons, like it was a different take on what I usually would expect with the suit. But I loved how this dude looked just like a massive tank with just a hammer walking through in the middle of the street. And it looks just as exactly what I would expect for something that's like a prototype or a Mark One version of this suit. So animation, great. Fight scenes, I think, is the most to me right now is the most iconic scene from this season. From the episode Pierce the Heavens Superman, when he and Lois
Mm.
are in the Black Mercy and they're like, we're going to get out of here. And you just see them actually punch through. It is like literally pierce the heavens. You feel the emotion. You don't even need to be as you could hate on Superman, but you see in this thing, it will warm your heart.
Mm.
So I love that this fight scene animation was put together. What about you? Where are you on fight scenes and animation?
I mean, across the board, what I think this series does exceptionally at, which I think is going to be underrated for, is that the fight scenes increase in intensity and scale as the season goes on. So even though you might not remember Superman versus the Atomic Skull like villain,
Mm-hmm.
it was a great fight. You go back and
Oh
look at
yeah.
that fight; it's a great fight. So throughout the season, I like the escalation. I like that the Superman is not so powerful that robots aren't like he can't just take on 12 robots and it's fine. He does struggle in his early career against a number of robots. So it's you can wear him down, which is something I like. Um and it may sound obvious, but the fight that really got me was right at the end of the season. Brainiac has an army of robots that can use kryptonite. He's also mind controlling Supergirl at the same time, Kara at the same time. So Kara and these army of robots are attacking Clark. He's getting blasted from all sides with lasers and punches, and he flies up into the sky above the cloud line. And for a moment, he closes his eyes, and we flash back to him as a kid,
Mm,
soaring in the sky, feeling the wind in his hair, feeling the joy of flight. And we cut back to him in present time. He recaptures that joy, that freedom. He dodges every attack. He
yeah.
comes back around. The attacks follow him. The attacks destroy the robot, but he saves his cousin with a hug and brings her back down to Earth.
Mm, damn.
This, I mean, this is all what makes this so especially the careful because you can do this and you can have a flashback scene in a fight and that's fine to a childhood. But what makes this especially good is they've done this before. In earlier in the season, they planted a seed that we might go back to his childhood at some points. So this doesn't come out of nowhere that he does this during the fight, and this is how he sees himself.
Mm-hmm.
So the way he sees himself in this fight as not offensive, in that fight, he actually stops fighting and saves. focus on the one person he cares about saving. And instead of hitting her when they get back to Earth, he hugs her again until she is able to break free. Every frame of that sequence is just full of emotion. It's full of love. You cannot say this was phoned in, that the animators didn't care. Every minute of that is made by people who care. So I
Mhm.
have to tip my hats off. It is my favorite sequence, maybe in any superhero show. I'm not saying I'm pushing Batman animated or Invincible out any. I'm just saying it's one of my favorite scenes I've
Top tier,
seen.
top tier.
Top tier, top tippest of the top.
Oh man, yeah. That I think, and also there's just so many moments that I love about that. The anime, I think the animation of it, I just love because that whole sequence, even thinking about it, I was like, yeah. And even just like everything slowing down once he made that hug. That's good writing because it even shows us like, hey, we're gonna take this moment right here. And just like because we're in it's normal to be like bouncing all around the place in a high intense moment. And then just to slow down with that hug to show that the embrace happened. A plus. A A plus.
Hmm. And now, before we give our final verdict, we're gonna do just 5 more minutes,
Mm-hmm.
good or bad, standout scenes from the season, just miscellaneous, anything that sticks out that we haven't covered yet, good or bad.
Okay. I'm thinking because I feel like I used it up a lot.
Yeah.
um, I think one a very quick scene is to me the reaction to when Jimmy couldn't defend Clark and Clark's they're both of their faces when they knew that moment was happening. Clark realizing that Superman is going to get blamed for so much decides that he has to run away because no one's going to he sees that Jimmy's not going to be able to really like stand up for him there. So he's like, this is a part of me now. He's been struggling with it now since last season. We don't know how long the timeline has been quite since between the end
Mhm.
of season 1 to now season 2. So when this happens, he's thinking that like, oh yeah, I'm doing good. People love me. They're cheering me on. But now there are people coming up and saying that the very thing I've been trying to hide about myself, people are saying that they hate that. And
Mhm.
now when I try to bring it forward, it's too late. I can't hide it anymore. There, people know, people see me, people, the ones closest to me know this secret of mine. And then seeing that Jimmy couldn't really defend his friend, I think seeing their faces and their reactions and knowing that that plays out throughout the rest of the show, I loved it. The one thing that I did kind of mock at first, but ultimately I've grown to love the design. I thought it was really weird that Brainiac chose to have a Superman suit that was basically bare chested.
Yes. There we didn't go right into it, but there's a time where Brainiac takes over Superman's body, and yeah, he puts on a new suit while he's in the body, and yeah, the bare chest logo, that was interesting. I get that he didn't want to rep the House of L for several reasons, and he's also barefoot. He's also
Yeah,
barefoot.
that's why I was a little confused. But there was a lot of bare moments in that
Yeah.
suit. Ultimately, it looks great. It does give this very villainous, evil presence. But then I was just like, I feel like he's going to be a little cold.
He, yeah, like, come on, you got to cover up. You're not a robot. And I mean, I
Right.
think I think it is it maybe that is a thing too. Like, he's not used to a human body, so he doesn't think about those things. But
Mm.
it was an interesting design choice.
Mm.
I felt like some fan fiction was filled out there. Um,
Mm.
speaking of design choices, I have two quick standout scenes. One is a design choice. Um, there's a Mala and the Brain reveal that they've been going to different multiverses and
Oh
getting kicked
yes.
out in very short sequence, but they've been getting kicked out because they keep opening black holes, which is fantastic. But in one of these short scenes, they have an origin story for how Mala gets his classic beret because he hadn't had it in season one. And it's they beat up another Mala in the brain, and the Mala steals the beret at the end of the battle. I mean, like, that's like when you want to have an origin story for a piece of clothing, that's how I want it delivered. Quick,
Hmm.
funny, to the point. Um, but the other standout thing I want to point out that I would like to see them tweak next season is Slade. I love Chris Parnell's performance.
Hmm.
Slade, I think he is really intimidating, but I do think he is too closely tied to other characters. I think him as Amanda's number two guy in season one worked really well, but here I still felt like he had no agency outside of Amanda. That
Mm.
ultimately was always about what Amanda did. And if you've seen Slade in any other media, you know he doesn't need anybody telling him what to do.
Oh yeah, nah. Even in Teen Titans Go, we saw that.
Yeah. So at the end of the season, they kind of end with him. There's a rift forming between him and Amanda all season, but then at the end of the season, he just chooses to side with Lex. And I'm like, I didn't love that. I didn't
Mm.
love that he switched to someone who he also was not getting along with Lex. So I'm hoping going forward that they just let him be freelance because I think him out in the world, that version of Slade out in the world with his own agenda, doing whatever he wants, is much more intimidating than a Slade taking orders from Lex or Amanda. Like
Yeah.
ideally, he'd be working with them, not for them, and that's just what I'd like to see. Um, all but otherwise, Slade is great. It's always
Yeah.
good to have
Does he
Slade.
still have his eye? I'm trying to remember.
No, I think he lost his eye. I think it's
Okay, he
been a
lost his eye.
while
Okay. All right.
since he's had an eye. All right. So with all that said, I know it's going to be impossible to tell going into it, but I gotta ask: season two of My Adventures with Superman, is it a cape or a cap?
Man, this thing billows like Superman's main piece. This is a cap. This is a oh, sorry, cape.
Put
Wow.
on a hat. What? Cover it up. Cover it up.
No, man, this show is a straight up cape. I love it. I think even from when we first learned about it, prior to when it was like before the show had even started with season one, I was hesitant. It was like, how can you introduce this new Superman series? We were in the point where DC was just like, we're recreating everything. And season one was great. Season two, far better, in my opinion. I think they did a really great job in getting their writing down. They got a really great job of putting the characters, both the villainous and the heroic characters, in the limelight that make me want to actually find out more about what they want to do. This is why I love about this show. It really does a great job in making you feel connected to a character. And it's not just because, I'm seeing myself in like Jimmy, or I'm seeing myself hearing about the relationships that each of these heroes have with another family member or anything. It was just that you watch their stories and you see them play out and you're like, I can see how that could come about. I can see how they can make that decision. I can see how they can get out of this situation, and still giving us at the same time, even though those predictable moments, really just flipping the script on certain things. So, and then in terms of like the animation, great job, well done. Everything was crisp, everything was clear, everything I loved about seeing particular designs of characters and their suits and the ways that it's being used. Wonderful work. I think that it shows to me that like though they're like it's like it's two sides of like the possibilities are endless of how they can navigate with their abilities, but at the same time I'm having a really great sense of understanding how they're operating with their skill set. And just overall dialogue, loved it. I think that it's such a great show for if you're looking for sometimes just something to kick back and really just hear some really great dialogue between cast members, between characters. You're not going to feel as if something's being rushed. You're not going to feel as if they're putting one character ahead of another because they have like a higher place named or anything like that. Everybody's presence feels so balanced throughout the entire series or season right now. Well, eight, well, actually just series right now. So yeah, this is a cape for me. Really hoping that there's going to be a season 3 announcement very soon. I'm not sure if one has been made yet, but really looking forward to how they're going to take the next stage of how everything that was not even like set up to be like a follow-up season, but just like hinted at that could be a follow-up season. So what about you? Is this a cape or is this a cap?
This is a bright red cape. I mean, I am blown away by what this
Mm.
show is able to accomplish in the span of a season. It did what some shows can't do with twice the amount of episodes. I'm not throwing shade at anyone. I'm just saying as a fact. The ground it covered, between character dynamics and relationships and the way it twists established things is so brilliant. It shakes up people who say the superhero genre is running out of steam. Come watch this. Come watch
Mm-hmm.
this and tell me that you think there are no more ideas in this genre, besides the
Mm.
fact that there's a lot of characters I haven't used yet, y'all. Um, so I really want to take this time because we talked so much about the merits, but I just want to say something really quickly about how people perceive the show, and if you're on the fence, how you should how I think you should try looking at it. I think people look at this show and think it's for kids. It's
Mm.
corny. It's too light and soft. And first of all, no. Watch those later episodes, and it is darker than arguably some parts of the Superman animated series originally, because Kara's destroying whole planets and Brainiac. You
Yeah.
know what that entails? Think about it.
Yep.
Um, not only, so I want people to put away the notion of something being corny, because I hear this sometimes about Cobra Kai too, and other stuff. Don't confuse corny with earnest.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are so used to, not your fault. You grew up on Iron Man. You grew up on Dark Knight. You grew up on the edgier sides of superhero movies where they still were wearing the costumes, but they're not. They're still a little bit afraid to embrace the full identity. So what we're moving back towards is superhero stories that are earnest, that are honest. TV shows like Cobra Kai that are earnest, that are honest. And sometimes you might be like, okay, I get it. It feels a little cheesy, but I just want you to think for a second and look at these shows that are wearing their hearts on their sleeves and willing to put themselves out there, as not saying that we don't need someone to get stabbed in this episode. We don't need aliens to rip apart someone. They're saying we have a story we want to tell, and it's going to take you on so many places, but trust us early on that we're being honest, we're taking the pacing slow because there's something waiting for you at the end. Because I'll stand by what I said before. I do think the earlier half of the season is, you could see it as standalone because the pacing isn't hot, hot, hot. But
Mm.
once you get to the midpoint where Kara arrives, you understand why the episodes before came like that. Everything in those episodes pays off. Everything. Nothing is wasted. So trust the process, trust the show, trust the critics and the audience who are loving it. I love it. I want to see even more of it. This is this is a certified cape. If you haven't gotten into the show, if you are reluctant to give it a try, please do yourself a favor. You can even jump in on season 2 if you really want to do that. I'd like you to go back to the
Yeah.
beginning, but you can jump in season 2 and you'd still be fine. So please give this a shot, and you'll be rewarded with a Fast and the Furious-esque barbecue at the end of the show. Which, look, I have questions about how all those people were invited without exposing that Clark is Superman, but that I, I'm gonna let it rock. I'm gonna let it rock. All right. You get one pass. You get one pass.
It's those glasses, man. They're a work of wonder.
But I'm like, the guest list. How do you, like? from their perspective, Clark is inviting them to this. They're like, why are we going to his house for this? Why are we leaving to Smallville? Why wouldn't we have this in Metropolis? You know, like
That's a good point. That's a really how does he navigate this?
like if you did this in Metropolis and Clark just showed up in a park, it'd be fine. But like you're kind of throwing yourself out, my guy. I'm just saying.
Also, I do always wonder how people feel about. I mean, it gets talked about a lot in comics, but I do wonder how people feel about seeing Lois with Superman and then seeing her with Clark in the next second and be like, "Wow, man, this man's a sucker. He really don't know that his old girlfriend is cheating on him with Superman."
That's not your man. That's Superman.
Oh man, but yes, I couldn't agree more though. If you are on the fence about this show, just give it a watch. I think a lot of times people tend to just say that, oh, like you said, the show looks corny, the show is whatever, it's not my style. You can just give it a chance versus just saying somewhere at some point telling someone else not to watch it because you never even watched it. So, and you are so right. You could literally jump in on season 2 and feel like you have a proper understanding of everything that's going on. So
yeah, and that's not a knock on season 1, guys. Season 1 is still good, but season 2 is able to build on that foundation already. It's already built, so they can go a little bit more and higher. So still, again, season 1 is it's different, but it's still. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we didn't like season 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, give it a shot. And another quick addendum I want to add: people who complain that all superhero movies are the same, what movies are you going to support? What TV shows are you going to support? I want you to think about that very carefully, because if you're only supporting the major releases and never giving anything else a shot, guess what you're going to keep getting? All people complaining out. Exactly. Reading my mind. This is why we're co-hosts, because sorry, quick rant, but it's recent news at the time of recording that Spider-Man 4 might be a multiverse, and everyone's like, oh no, I wanted a grounded story. Did you? Because you saw Deadpool and Wolverine, No Way Home, The Flash, for all its faults, Into the Spider-Verse. Did you support Eternals, Shang-Chi, Harley Quinn with that kind of energy? And I'm not saying all these movies are certified bangers. I'm just saying if you see one type of superhero movie in droves, that's the one they're going to keep making for you. So if you want to change that, give shows a try. Not forcing it down your throat. I'm just saying, see if you like it. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. But don't count it out because it's different.
Yep. And with that important message, we're going to wrap up our episode here today. Join us for our next show on Run It Back, the summer watch list here, with Suicide Squad Isekai. It is a brand new take on the DC characters that we know. So excited to see if it earned its cape or its cap. Be sure to support us either through a one-time gift on Buy Me a Coffee or monthly through Patreon. Check us out on our socials for updates on the episodes that you can find across Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many other platforms. Take care of yourselves, and remember that if you come into a large sum of money, be very careful about how you're spending it. You may or may not be broke by season's end.
And if you see a man floating in the sky, barefoot, chest out, I mean, I don't know why you're still looking. Get out of there. It's not good. Whatever is happening there is not good for you. Get out of there. Now, why are you still looking?
Thanks again for listening. If you liked what you heard, press that follow button and share us with a friend. And don't forget, you can always see more updates and content on our social media accounts just by searching @Cape or Cap.